If you told most people that you plan to eat 5 eggs every single day for an entire month, the reaction would be immediate and predictable. Concern, warnings, cholesterol, heart disease, a raised eyebrow followed by advice you did not ask for. But science has a way of separating instinctive fear from biological reality. This is not a story about excess. It is a story about precision, about what happens when the human body is given a complete biological signal instead of fragmented nutrition. Over the next 30 days, nothing dramatic happens overnight. No miracle, no shock. What happens is quieter, slower, more fundamental. By the end of this video, you will understand how a simple daily habit can shift insulin dynamics, neurotransmitter availability, hormone synthesis, cellular repair, and metabolic signaling in ways most people never experience. Not because eggs are magic, but because they are informationally dense. Before we begin the clock, we need to clarify one thing. This is not about eating more. It is about feeding the right systems at the right level. Pause. Now let's start at the source. Not all eggs deliver the same biological message. That is not marketing, that is chemistry. When a hen lives outdoors and feeds naturally, the composition of the yolk changes in measurable ways. Higher vitamin D, higher omega-3 content, more carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, a fatty acid profile that more closely resembles what the human nervous system evolved alongside. Color is not cosmetic. Deep orange yolks indicate higher concentrations of fat-soluble micronutrients that survive digestion and integrate into human tissue. This matters because your body does not respond to calories. It responds to molecular signals. If the signal is incomplete, the response is incomplete. 5 eggs from nutrient-poor systems are not the same intervention as 5 eggs from biologically intact systems. The difference does not show up on a label. It shows up in the bloodstream. With that distinction in place, we can now look at what actually happens when the experiment begins. Within the first few days, most people notice something unusual. Hunger becomes quieter. The urgency to snack fades. The mid-afternoon energy crash weakens or disappears. This is not willpower, it is hormonal feedback. Eggs produce almost no glycemic response. There is no blood sugar spike, no insulin surge, no rebound crash. Instead, the combination of complete protein and natural fats stimulates satiety hormones that signal security rather than scarcity. Peptide YY increases, ghrelin decreases, cortisol stabilizes. This matters because insulin is not just a storage hormone, it is a permission signal. When insulin remains elevated, fat stores stay locked. When insulin drops gently and consistently, the body regains access to its own energy. Weight may not change dramatically in week 1, but metabolic tone does. Energy becomes stable rather than oscillating. Mental noise decreases. The system downshifts from constant emergency mode. This is not ketosis. It is metabolic remembrance. By the second week, the effects move upward, from metabolism to cognition. Eggs are one of the most concentrated dietary sources of choline, a nutrient essential for the synthesis of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine governs focus, memory encoding, and neural communication speed. Most adults consume far below optimal choline levels. The deficiency is subtle. It shows up as brain fog, forgetfulness, difficulty sustaining attention. 5 eggs provide roughly 600 to 700 milligrams of choline. This is not stimulation, it is structural support. At the same time, DHA from egg yolks integrates into neuronal membranes. The brain is not powered only by glucose. It is built from fat. High-quality omega-3 seconds improve membrane fluidity, signal transmission, and stress resilience. People often describe this phase as mental clarity rather than excitement. Thoughts feel less crowded. Emotional reactivity softens. The nervous system becomes less noisy. This is not enhancement, it is restoration. Modern visual strain is often blamed on aging, but biology tells a more precise story. What wears down the eyes over time is not years alone, but cumulative oxidative load. Every hour spent under artificial light adds microscopic stress to retinal tissue, especially from high-energy blue wavelengths that penetrate deep into the eye. Lutein and zeaxanthin concentrate specifically in the macula, the region responsible for sharp central vision. Their role is not to enhance vision dramatically, but to filter excess light and neutralize free radicals before damage accumulates. Egg yolks deliver these compounds already bound to fats, allowing them to absorb efficiently without the need for supplementation. These pigments do not act like stimulants. They do not create an immediate sensation. They accumulate slowly, forming a protective layer over time. More accurate contrast perception, less visual fatigue late in the day, subtle changes that are noticed most clearly when they are absent. This is how biology often works, quietly, gradually, preventatively. By the third week, the body's response shifts from regulation to reconstruction. At this stage, protein quality becomes more important than protein quantity. Biology does not measure protein by grams consumed, but by how much of it can actually be converted into human tissue. Whole eggs remain the reference standard because their amino acid pattern closely mirrors the structural needs of muscle, bone, and organ tissue. This results in higher net nitrogen retention, meaning a greater proportion of each gram is retained for repair rather than burned as excess fuel. With age, this distinction becomes critical. Sarcopenia is not driven by calorie deficiency. It emerges when the body lacks precise building material. Eggs also bypass a common metabolic trap. Isolated protein often triggers an insulin response that favors storage. When protein is delivered with natural fats, that signal is buffered. Muscle repair proceeds without activating unnecessary fat deposition. By week 3, recovery becomes more efficient. Strength stabilizes. Fat loss occurs without sacrificing muscle mass, not through speed, through efficiency. Dietary cholesterol has been misunderstood for generations, largely because it was observed rather than mechanistically understood. The human liver produces far more cholesterol each day than food ever supplies. When dietary cholesterol increases, the liver downregulates its own production. When intake drops, production rises. This feedback system is stable, adaptive, and tightly regulated. Cholesterol itself does not damage arteries. It responds to damage that already exists. When vascular inflammation occurs, cholesterol is deployed as a repair molecule, reinforcing compromised tissue. Blaming cholesterol for heart disease confuses correlation with causation, much like blaming firefighters for fires simply because they arrive at the scene. Egg consumption also influences cholesterol behavior, not just quantity. It tends to shift LDL particles toward larger, less dense forms that are significantly less atherogenic. Total cholesterol numbers may rise modestly, yet overall cardiovascular risk often declines. Biology does not operate on simplified warnings. It operates on particle behavior, tissue response, and context. Cholesterol is not merely a circulating lipid, it is a foundational molecule. Every major steroid hormone in the human body begins with cholesterol as its raw material, including testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and progesterone. When supply is inadequate, hormonal output does not fail dramatically. It degrades quietly, showing up as fatigue, poor recovery, mood instability, or diminished resilience to stress. Eggs provide cholesterol in a form the body recognizes and regulates naturally. At the same time, they deliver B vitamins and choline that support methylation pathways, a core biochemical process responsible for cellular repair and metabolic cleanup. This becomes especially relevant for individuals with common MTHFR variants, where the conversion of homocysteine is less efficient. When homocysteine accumulates, vascular stress increases regardless of cholesterol levels. Supporting methylation lowers that burden more reliably than simply reducing dietary fat. This is not detox culture, it is enzymatic reality, operating at the level of cellular chemistry rather than slogans. Cooking is not a neutral act. It is a biological intervention. Heat alters molecular structure, especially when it comes to fats. Excessive temperature changes how lipids behave, and prolonged exposure to oxygen increases oxidation, which can transform otherwise functional molecules into inflammatory ones. The nutrients in egg yolks are particularly sensitive. Cholesterol and fat-soluble antioxidants remain beneficial only when their structure is preserved. Gentle methods such as soft boiling, poaching, or slow scrambling over low heat protect this integrity. These approaches keep the yolk cohesive, allowing the fats to remain stable and absorbable. High heat does the opposite. It fractures fat structures, oxidizes cholesterol, and degrades vitamins that were meant to support cellular repair. What was once informational nutrition becomes metabolic noise. This is why preparation matters as much as selection. Cooking is not a matter of taste or tradition. It is chemistry, determining whether food delivers a coherent biological signal or a distorted one. After 30 days, the most meaningful changes are not dramatic or visible on the surface. They exist at baseline. Insulin signaling becomes quieter and more stable. Energy no longer spikes and crashes, but settles into a predictable rhythm. Cognitive resilience improves, not as intensity, but as consistency. Hormonal systems regain adequate raw material. Nutrient sufficiency replaces chronic low-grade deficit. This outcome is not the result of restriction or discipline. It is the result of alignment. When the body receives complete biological signals, it stops compensating. This is not a temporary diet. It is informational nutrition, where food communicates instructions rather than calories. Food does not simply fuel the body, it informs it how to build, repair, and prioritize. That message accumulates over time, shaping physiology quietly. If this analysis changed how you think about nutrition, consider liking the video and subscribing to Pure Science Explained. Share your own experience in the comments, including how food has shaped your health or your family's habits. Science is not driven by fear. It is guided by understanding. We will see you in the next one.